to a wide open Mikhail Gerasimchenko! Ready to celebrate, and a giddy Cavalry supporting contingent. For Phil Dos Santos and his staff to get their first win of the season.
CPL Newsroom, presented by Volkswagen, Week 7. We're almost a quarter away through the season. I think about half of the CPL teams are at the quarter mark now. And a lot of fun. We had 3 more games over the weekend, guys, plus a rather special one last Tuesday, which does count in Week 7, and we will get to at the end of this show. But a lot to talk about from the games on Friday and Saturday. And we're going to start on Friday night because finally Valour FC are on the board. Couldn't come at a better time, I think, unless it had been earlier. But they finally get that first win just ahead of playing the Whitecaps in the Canadian Championship on Tuesday. They come back from a goal down to beat York United at home. Mitchell, you were on this game for us, and we're going to start with Valour. We haven't had a lot of chances to lead the show with them this year, so we're going to do that for them today. You want to talk about Valour and their relentless energy in this game against York on Friday to win 2-1. Couple of misses, a couple of tough moments, but they pushed through. What do you like about Valour finally?
Yeah, I mean, more than tactics, more than any individual performances, this was a character win for them that they really needed. You know, they get scored on late in the first half after a pretty good showing in the first half. They were mostly in control of the ball. York score a goal, and you know that could have really deflated them heading into halftime. But they come out in the second half, they equalize pretty quickly. A lovely effort through Chris Twardak, and then they're those side in the ascendancy. Absolutely, I mean they're creating a ton of chances towards the second half. You know, we see Rocco Romeo miss a pretty wide open header. We see Sean Hundle have a couple of opportunities as well. And then, of course, they just keep pressing. Like, I don't know, for a team that has had so many issues, not only in front of goal, but in matches in general, like it just seemed like that could have broken their character. But instead, they press on and they get a late goal through Kelsey Egwu. And honestly, that's the pretty perfect person if we're talking about resilience of a team. To score that goal is Kelsey Egwu, who, you know, was a player who last week maybe we were talking a little bit about a difficult performance that he had against Atletico Ottawa, but you know he's able to bounce back and you know score again in this game. He scored 2 good games in a row, but also just put in a really strong defensive shift. You know, Phil Dos Santos called this a little bit the roadmap to success for Valour Football Club. And obviously, you know, it's quite the journey to go. They have a pretty big step against the Whitecaps, as you mentioned, coming up on Tuesday, but I thought this match was a pretty good marker for them.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people would have called Kelsey Egwu scoring in back-to-back games for Valour, but shout out him. That's a really, really, as you mentioned, important character moment for Valour. As I mentioned, they do take on the Whitecaps on Tuesday, who are terrifying at the moment to any Canadian Premier League team, arguably the most informed team in all of North America. But there's never been an MLS team in Winnipeg before in a Canadian Championship. Mitch, very quickly before we touch on York here, how are you looking at this one if you're Valour? Obviously, it's an uphill battle, but you know, finally a little bit of confidence going their way, right?
Yeah, I think, you know, you have a ticket. I think that's what Phil Dos Santos said. Like, yeah, you have a ticket, you might as well dance, kind of thing. Like, this is a little bit of a bonus game for them in terms of, you know, team playing in a continental final, coming to their ground. You know, no one really, I don't think, expects them to win, just considering what the Whitecaps have been able to do this season. So you might as well go out there, play free, play open, and see what you can do. You know, they said this is a really hard game to scout because you don't know what Whitecaps team you're getting, considering they play, I think it's 5 games in 12 days or something like that before that continental final. So you really don't know who's going to show up, what kind of tactics they're going to put out there. So it's really about focusing on themselves for Valour and seeing what you can do in a special game like this.
Yeah, I will say that we did get the Whitecaps, I think 23-man squad for the game last night, and all of their big players are in it, other than Ryan Gauld. All of their main players are in that squad and likely traveling to Winnipeg. So that'll be fun Tuesday night on OneSoccer. Almost I think that kicks off about an hour and a half after Forge Montreal kicks off as well. But York, quickly, Mitch, they've blown 6 leads this year. They've dropped 14 points from winning positions. What's going on? That's my simple question. I think you want to talk about set pieces because they seem to be really, really struggling to defend those. So what are you seeing there?
I think I wrote in my analysis that one team shed some demons in this game and the others only became a lot bigger. And one of those things that's obviously really been plaguing York United over the last little bit is their set piece defending. And obviously we saw that on the match winner against Kelsey, or with Kelsey Agwu scoring. But I mean, it's just something that it continues to plague them again, week in, week out. And, it's such a preventable issue in multiple facets. I mean, one, they're giving away so many set pieces. Like they lead the league in fouls, I think with 118 so far this year. So they're giving the other team a lot of opportunities to take set pieces. When you're struggling at something, you don't want to give as much opportunity as you can to not give it away. And, we've seen them get hurt in different ways. You think of against Ottawa, Manny Aparicio, like they switch off and let him have too much space in the top of the box on a short free kick. You think about, Probo, where he whips in that ball and it just goes all the way through against Halifax, against the Ottawa again, a Batney. Like there's so many different examples now of this. We know they're working on it. We've seen them working on it in warmups, which is a little, uncharacteristic of any team, but it's, it's something they have been doing in warmups, is working on set pieces to try and figure this out. So it's not for a lack of trying, but I think you need certainly more leadership and accountability in the box, like making sure who has who and sticking to them. And if you have to do a quick switch, like doing it seamlessly, it doesn't seem like there's that. And they get Elijah Adekubi back, but you need other voices in there. You need your goalkeeper shouting at people. Like they need to sort that out. And again, just giving the opponents less opportunities to hurt you in this way, which they haven't done a good job of so far this season. So again, the list of issues for York is kind of mounting up, but this was the big one that hurt them in this game and continues to hurt them this season.
Yeah, they had Elijah Adekubi back, but at center back because Niall Higgins wasn't there, which is a player that you'd want to have in the box, I think, on set pieces. Elijah's great on the ball, but he's not the tallest of players, so I'm not sure if that's necessarily a factor in this or not. But you certainly want your defenders to get a little healthier too, and maybe you get a guy like a Frank Stirring or a Niall Higgins in there hopefully soon, healthy to help them solve that problem. But let's go to Calgary because this game was different, but also a team very, very frustrated leaving it, and a team very, very happy in very good form. Cavalry 4, Pacific 0. This was kind of just an onslaught in the second half, especially from Cavalry. Although they score very, very early. And then from there, it's just Pacific had nothing in this game going forward. Very frustrated team. I think we're going to start with Pacific, actually, because it might be the clearer story. Cavalry are very, very good right now in excellent form, and we'll get to them. But Pacific, and Alex, I think I'll bring you in here because we haven't heard from you yet in this show. Very frustrated team. And we'll start there because they had 40 final third entries in this game, 9 touches in the box. Not a great conversion rate. Their front three so incredibly isolated from each other. We saw Marco Bustos smashing the Gatorade bottles after the game. Got a yellow card for it, or not after, when he came off the pitch. Yellow card for it. Everybody's frustrated. Josh Hurd after the game said that he felt like maybe Pacific is a little unconfident in their attack right now. Just guys are maybe getting in their own heads. Certainly it looked like Dario Zanata did on one where I think it was like almost all of the expected goals Pacific had all game was that one chance off a Bustos free kick, falls to Zanata. It was, I'm not even kidding, it was 0.7 expected goals, and they had 0.84 in the whole game. But Alex, you've watched a lot of Pacific. What's wrong? We feel like we say this every week, but this is like maybe the most severe microcosm of how frustrated they are in attack.
Yeah, clearly if there was some sort of simple answer, like we had some sort of golden wand we could wave, I'm sure James Merriman would love to use it. But I think something that just stands out from this one is just they're been incapable of building any sort of momentum. It just feels like there's no continuity from half to half, game to game. That these little moments, like I think you get a good emotional win at home against York after a tough week. You get a late goal. You get something you can perhaps build off of, and then you come out and within 7 minutes you're picking a ball out your net away at a place where you haven't won very often in CPL regular season play. Like that's and James Merriman referenced the start after the game, just how he felt it was a slow start. They weren't ready.
Yeah.
And that's something where you take momentum where you can. You take it off a sliver, you take it off a moment. And that's just kind of been the story of Pacific season. You'll have moments like you have one of your best first halves in a season against Ottawa away. And then, by the second half, it's a gulf of a score line that feels like you're never really in the game. And I think for Pacific, from game 1 to game 7, it's been hard. You'd be hard pressed to find a moment where they've put 3 consecutive halves together where they've looked like Pacific FC. And I think confidence is a big one because they have an idea of what to do. They show it in moments, and for whatever reason they've just been going or they've just been incapable to do so. So it is tough because, like you mentioned, there's pieces there. Yes, they lost a few key ones to injuries, but this is ultimately a team with talent. Marco Bustos among them. He's trying his hardest, and I think that frustration showed itself, like you mentioned. So definitely going to be something. It's never easy to fix confidence. So it's not a task I envy.
And we know that Marco is a very fierce competitor, and this is really hurting him. That he feels like he's not playing up to his own standards. The rest of the team is frustrating. But the other thing that I will point out with Pacific from this game, and we'll use this to transition into Cavalry by rolling the goals and the context to all 4 of them, is that there's a lot of individual errors on these, right? Especially on set pieces, similar to York. This first one, the Gerasimenkov goal, that clearing header goes straight to the top of the box, which is not where you want that to go. The second one is a penalty where who was it? I think it was La Jeunesse. Yeah, it was La Jeunesse. He dives for the header, completely misses the ball, and he's got his arm out. Like that's just not a mistake that you can be making in the box like that. Again, a set piece. The third one, just a clumsy tackle from Montano, who was last week's hero against York, comes onto the pitch, and within 5 minutes, he gives away a second straight penalty within a couple of minutes. And even the fourth one is just a silly foul on the edge of the box. And Cavalry, we'll talk about them now. They are not a team that let you get away with stuff like that, right? The first one, Gerasimenkov, maybe not a player that a lot of people know very much about. He comes into this team. He's getting more and more minutes with Cavalry the last few weeks, and you can see why. Scores that absolute cracker in the 7th minute. 2 penalties. I mean, Toby Warshevsky doesn't usually miss them. And then the second one, they give it to Ali Musi, and I think maybe that is a clever choice. Whenever a player gets, a team gets 2 penalties in a game, I kind of like the idea of letting a different guy take it. Certainly, we've seen it happen before that a player maybe gets in his own head when he takes a second penalty in the game, trying to decide if he goes the same way or he goes a different way. I can think of a Harry Kane one in the World Cup that maybe that was a factor in. But again, just quickly on Cavalry, Mitch, I'll come back to you here. Cavalry look much more. We've said it the last few weeks. They look much more like Cavalry now, don't they?
Yeah, what a difference I think Ali Musi in particular making, along with a guy like Tobias Warshevsky, is when he's going, we know they love to overload that right side and really attack all their play down that right side. So when you have Musi, who's so close to Warshevsky, doing his magic as well, I think that's such a big difference maker for this team. And obviously Toby's going, and from there, when you have the kind of 2-headed monster, like everyone else just kind of falls into place. And yeah, like you said, Gerasimenko, like that's another added. They always have these like guys throughout the season who step up and contribute big things, and right now that's him. I'm sure other guys, Emile Henry, Herdman, like they have so many of those other guys that I think we'll see moments from throughout the season. But yeah, when you got your big boys going, that's always gonna kind of lead the charge, and that's certainly what's happening for Cavalry right now.
Yeah, when the tempo picks up like that and Musi and Warshevsky are on the ball and driving forward, you just can't really stop them. Like, there's really not a lot you can do
You
against
can,
those
but
guys.
you'll end up
You have to foul
taking
them.
a penalty. Yeah.
And you
Yeah,
don't want to
you
give
foul
up free
them.
kicks against those guys.
You
No,
don't
More
want
penalties.
exactly. This is the problem. You can't give
Or
up free
corners.
kicks. You can't put the ball out of play behind because you give up a corner. And again, Cavalry are probably going to score from it. It's a nightmare. I do not envy coaches that have to try and think of ways to deal with this against Cavalry right now. And also, I mentioned him in passing earlier. I do want to shout out Gareth Semenkov, who I think has been really, really good. He started the last 2 games for Cavalry in Halifax in this game at home. And you can see that it's that natural fullback skill set, that defensive skill set that helps him so much in this Cavalry system, because they love to defend from the front. They love to press, right? And he knows how to go hunting for the ball, how to track opposing fullbacks, and how to win that back. So he's been a really, really big part of that press as well, and rightly rewarded with that just stunner of a goal very early on to set the tone for this game. Lots to like in Calgary. Very happy team, and they roll into a Canadian Championship tie this week as well, taking on Vancouver FC on Wednesday in a matchup of a Canadian Championship tie last year that was a little bit heated. We'll see what balls they use this year. But anyway, moving on to the third game of the weekend. I guess the fourth game of the week, but the third game of the weekend. AGR, this was yours. Vancouver FC versus Halifax, and the Wanderers take it 2-0. It took a little bit longer than we expected. We had a rain delay in the middle, but we're gonna maybe I'll start with that. Alex, I know you wrote a little bit about it. How much did that change the tempo of this game, or the kind of the outlook of this game, and just what is the story of it? Because I know it was a bit of a strange one.
Yeah, well, weather delays, I've now sat through a few, at least whenever I'm on CampBL.ca duty. It's been a while. I've had my famous streak where I covered back-to-back Cavalry games in 22, I think it might have been now.
Yeah, that was brutal.
Brutal. But it's the first time covering one in person, and it's definitely a sight when you're sitting for 40 minutes under a tent, just waiting for lightning to pass, and just get rained on. But no, it's always fascinating because it's one of those things where there's 2 teams, it affects them the same, and I always just love to see how do teams approach it? What's the best way to come about it? And for me, what stands out is, heading into the break, Vancouver were probably the better team by like a 60-40 margin. They had slightly better chances. They felt a bit more in control. Like 2 minutes before the break, they have an excellent chance. And then, coming out after a 40-minute break, the momentum completely flipped. And I always find that so fascinating, because ultimately, you're stuck in the same situation. There's different ways to approach it. And one thing that's really, I'll try not to take too many of my own talking points away, but Patrice Geyser, he didn't make any subs during this break, which was interesting. He told me after, he's like, actually, we're gonna literally make a sub 58th minute, lightning hit. He kind of used it as a chance of you know what, my players are gonna get a bit of an extra rest. I'm gonna get 10 more minutes out of them, and that paid off, because Giorgio Probo and Ryan Telfer, feels like maybe one of those guys might have not even been on the pitch if not for the lightning delay, and they link up and score, which I thought was pretty cool.
That's true. That's a really good point. Let's go into Vancouver quickly before we get back to Halifax. You mentioned that the rain delay affects everybody the same, but it actually affects them very differently. I think in this case, as you mentioned, Vancouver, coming in with if they're feeling okay coming into this game, they've been playing better the last few weeks. Just can't put the ball in the net. There's that Diaz miss. I think we've got a couple clips here to show kind of the difference between before and after the rain. This ball pops out to Diaz in the box, and it's not the easiest of finishes. There's a lot of traffic on the way through, but you want to see him do better than that. There's a word on Vancouver, Alex, and how where they are mentally, I think, at this point in the season.
Yeah, no, I think for Vancouver, on one hand, it was interesting. Again, talking to them after the game and just seeing the reaction was, ultimately, this is a frustrating loss. Anytime you lose 2 goals at home, this is also a team that we have to remember, their home record is a big concern. It has been, and that's another bad home loss, in the sense that they went out and had a couple of good performances on the road, and they aren't able to continue that at home. But I think, again, for a team that's if you're focusing on performances, it was a good performance. I think that was a tough thing for Afshin Ghapi to kind of level with after, is like, overall, the team did a lot of what they wanted to. They defended well. They gave up 1.3 XG, 0.75 of that was Coimbra at the end, kind of just, like stat padding it, so to sense. So it was a good defensive performance in terms of the numbers. But then essentially the game boils down to Diaz missed that chance. A couple other chances, like Vasco Fry had one on the side of the net he could have maybe done better with. There's a couple others. And then Halifax just unlocked them with a couple simple balls over the top. And that's it. 2 mistakes from Vancouver and some bad finishing. And I think for them, that's tough, because that leaves you with the result in a game, I think, where they want to be better at home in terms of results and being more dominant at home. So tough one to level with, because I think they'll be thinking, all right, at least they are continuing to build. They're getting some momentum. But yeah, there'll be a lot to be frustrated with. And it's one of those where that's just football sometimes. Like, I know they already weren't happy with having a 10-day break heading into this game because they were in some good momentum. That's unlucky, right? Where you just get some momentum and then you get a weekend off. That's not always easy to deal with. But hey, that's football. Sometimes you get that. Sometimes lightning strikes. You got to manage the moments. They didn't.
Well, good news. They've got Cavalry coming to town on Wednesday for the Canadian Championship. So no break for them. And then they're off to York next weekend. But Halifax, we're going to talk about the Wanderers here. They're so much fun to watch. They have been for a little bit. Even when they weren't very good last year, they were fun to watch. But let's start with Patrice Geyser, because it feels like there's something a little bit different about the Wanderers this year. Here's his reaction after this game.
You try not to compare your kids, and I try not to compare my teams, but the last year's group was a really talented group, very talented. But like right now, we have a lot of, he said gritty, or I call them grinders. They'll grind, and we have people that when you feel that things should be setting panic in, they don't feel it. They're calm. You could feel it. We're okay. You could kick the ball to us 40 times. We'll be good. And look, it doesn't always work out, but I think Thomas has been a huge addition in that. Andre has been incredible on and off the field with his leadership. Telfer's been incredible. Julian has yet to play, but his leadership, that's helped us. And I think Lorenzo continues to grow in that category as well, going into his 3rd season, and the ambition that he has for us to be contenders.
Patrice calls them grinders. Alex, in some of our group chats, you called them dogs. You like Halifax this year and that grit and character they have, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, dogs, I feel like is kind of sums it up, because what I love is after this game, it's a road game. By the way, they go out and get their 3rd road win of the year now, up to 10 road points on the year. Not now, they've left 6 points of last year behind, and Patrice was already saying they're starting to talk about beating that record of 14 road points, which, hey, at this point, you'd back them on smashing that.
Danger.
The best way to describe it is, dogs, because they went out and only kept 47% of the ball, like mentioned. They had to sit back a lot more. They had to play more direct. And for Halifax 2 years ago, that was disaster. Uh-oh, no ball. What's going on? Where's the free-flowing Wanderers? How do you cope with it? Oh, no, you lose a game. And it just feels like this team has a calmness about them. They have a dog about them, although going to a road game. And I mean, again, Thomas Merjigir is a big reason for that. We've sung his praises plenty on this show, and I think we will. He's a great example of it. He's out here celebrating clearances. He's out here celebrating blocks. There was one where he headed the ball back to Ryan Yeslin. He's fist pumping like he scored a goal. That energy is clearly contagious, but it's the best way to sum it up. These guys, they want to go out and tackle. They want to go out and press. They want to defend. They want to do all the ugly things you need to do to win. And I think, quite frankly, maybe the past 2 versions of Halifax, especially last year, if it wasn't going their way and they weren't playing the free-flowing Halifax football, sometimes they struggled to have to settle in the fact that sometimes you have to play ugly. And the reality is that's football. Cavalry have shown it. Forge have shown it. That's, if you want to be at that level of team, you're not gonna have 28 perfect games and win all of them. If you did, I mean, there's Pep Guardiola is the closest thing to that. Even he'll tell you it's never easy to manage a 34, 38 game season. So for Patrice Geyser's group, I think, and Patrice talking about it, the grinders, I love that, because it's just so true of, this, you're looking at what's worked for the Wanderers this year. I can't say it's been they're, free flowing football, this or that. I think there's just reality as they're managing games better, they're defending better, and when it comes down to it, they're showing that resolve and wanting it a bit more than opponents, which you sometimes need to win games in this league.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I really like that mental toughness we see from Halifax. It's really hard to win on the road in the Canadian Premier League, no matter where you go. Halifax's next away game, by the way, we do have to shout out, is in Quebec City, which is fun. Taking on York United, kind of an away game for both teams. I do think that Halifax are expecting a pretty strong traveling contingent, though, so they'll see what they can do to bring the comforts of home to La Belle Province. But they've got Atletico Ottawa next weekend at home. That's a huge game, and we're going to finish up this show with Atletico Ottawa's most recent appearance on a football pitch, which was last Tuesday in Hamilton on a sunny morning. Against Forge FC 2-2. Mitch, you and I were there. CPL attendance record of 17,971, I believe. Mostly children from 150 schools around the Hamilton area. Let's start with that, though, Mitch. How cool was it being in this stadium for this game?
These school day games are quickly becoming, one of the best days of the season, I think, in the Canadian Premier League calendar. Like, there's such an occasion to them. Because obviously, when you set an attendance record when there's 17,000 plus kids in attendance, it's always special. But I think just for what it means for Canadian soccer right now, that we're able to put on these showcase events where these kids get exposed to high level professional football in their backyard, and it really was like that's the thing, as well as these two showcase games have been excellent games. Getting to see Forge play against Atletico Ottawa in this game was, right now I know we just talked about Halifax, they're probably in that conversation as well, but those are the two undefeated teams in the CPL. Those are two of the big dogs in the CPL right now, and they put on a show as well. So incredibly special. I think another one of these that will really be a day to remember within the Canadian Premier League, and they just keep getting better every year.
Yeah, and they do both remain unbeaten, the two unbeaten teams in the league, because this game ended 2-2. It was kind of a fun game. Atletico Ottawa would take the lead twice. Forge strike back immediately, almost both times. The first goal, Rodriguez into Kevin Dos Santos, and then the second one as well. This was a while ago. Who scored that goal? Sam Salter, obviously. Not long after scoring 4, he scores another one in this game. I think that it's very impressive to see Forge able to battle back twice. You like that mentality. Bobby Smirniota certainly would have liked to see that mentality before they conceded, because he felt that they were the better team in this game. He felt they left 2 points on the table. But a big story coming out of this game, however, is David Rodriguez getting 2 yellow cards for dissent within a couple of minutes. Sent off. He will miss that game in Halifax next weekend. We're not going to see him again until the end of May, really. I think that last weekend in May. So that's going to be very tough for Ottawa, who just so much of their attack has gone through him in the last in the opening few weeks of this season. So it'll be tough to adjust, but we'll see how they do it. But anyway, we don't have a lot of time left on this show to talk about that, and I don't really like talking about refereeing. So. We move on from that one, and we just take one quick look at the standings and how things are. As I mentioned, 4 teams over the quarter mark, 4 teams, over the quarter mark, 4-1 behind the 7 match line. Atletico Ottawa still in first, though, 17 points, undefeated. Halifax up into second, Cavalry third, and Forge fourth, just slightly. They're tied with Cavalry on points, but they're just behind on wins. Pacific in 5th, Vancouver 6th, Valour 7th, and York United now at the bottom of the table based on a few of the tiebreakers. Again, tied with Valour, but the tiebreakers have them down there. But it's still close. They're still only 3 points behind that playoff line, and it is pretty early in the season. Lots to come this week, though. Canadian Championship, as I mentioned, returns. Tuesday evening, we've got Valour and the Whitecaps. We got Forge against CF Montreal. Wednesday, Vancouver FC versus Cavalry FC. And then a full slate of match week 8 next weekend. Halifax taking on Atletico Ottawa. That one's on TSN. Pacific taking on Forge on Saturday. And then Sunday's doubleheader starts at York Lions Stadium. York United, Vancouver FC, followed by Cavalry FC and Valour. lots to come. That was a lot to say. I'm kind of out of breath here, so we're going to end the show. Thank you very, very much for watching. We will see you all next week. Thank you very, very much, and have a great week, boys.
Mikhail Gerasimchenko ready to celebrate, and a giddy Cavalry supporting contingent. For Phil Dos Santos and his staff to get their first win of the season.